Purdue is a big bounce back spot this Sunday. A little bit of a new schedule for the Boilers. I believe this is one of the first Sunday games they've played all season, but big time bounce back spot against one of the clear worst teams in the Big Ten, probably the worst team in the Big Ten in Maryland. This is a bad Maryland team, and this is a Purdue team that is coming off a 3-game losing streak. So not many better opportunities to get right in conference play in the Big Ten. So, what do you kind of see from this matchup? What do you think this means to Purdue? What do you want to see coming out of this 3-game losing streak?
Yeah, we said bounce back spot 2 games in a row now. Indiana was also a bounce back spot, but it was also a rivalry game on the road. And as Purdue fans well know, as really any college sports fan knows, those games are super unpredictable. This is very much an actual bounce back spot. Maryland is the worst team in the Big Ten analytically. And the results back that up. This is a Maryland team that's gotten absolutely blitzed by any team of the pulse they've played. They're coming off a 91-48 loss at Michigan State. The game before that, they lost by 19 to Illinois. They lost by 17 to USC, 12 to UCLA, 22 to Indiana, 10 to Oregon. Oregon's only Big Ten win of the season. They lost at Virginia only by 8. Not a bad showing, but they lost by 18 to Michigan, 19 to Iowa, 33 to Alabama, and 39 to Gonzaga. Even 10 to Georgetown, just for a little extra fun. Another mediocre team kind of double digiting Maryland here. Their lone Big Ten win is over Penn State. This is not a Maryland team on paper that should pose any problems for Purdue.
Yeah, I mean this Maryland team has played 12 teams in the top 100 on KenPom. They've lost all 12, 11 of which were by double figures, and like that includes Oregon and Georgetown, who, while they're in the top 100, are just not good enough basketball teams to really kind of make things happen. It's a team that has had a lot of trouble throughout the entire year competing with the teams with a pulse, and you look at kind of the underlying statistics, and that makes sense why.
Yeah, let's break down this profile a little bit. We'll start with the Maryland defense going up against the second best offense in the country in the Purdue Boilermakers. They're outside the top 300 in field goal percentage against. This is one of the worst defenses in the power conferences. They don't force turnovers. Purdue doesn't turn the ball over. They don't defensively rebound. Purdue is a good offensive rebounding team. They foul a decent amount, not crazy amount, but they foul a decent amount. Of course, that's one Purdue doesn't take advantage of. One of the least fouled teams in the country. They give up a super high percentage from 3, a slightly better percentage from 2. They don't have any rim protection. They don't force steals. About the only thing they do on defense that Purdue doesn't want, they don't like they play pretty quick on defense. At least they don't really force teams into long possessions, mostly because they don't force teams to do anything on defenses. Offenses get whatever they want against Maryland defense, and possessions are over pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty telling. Average possession length on defense is in the top 100, while bottom through they're sub 300 in effective field goal percentage. They're one of the worst teams in the country in um, assist to field goal or assist rate defensively. It's a defense that just kind of lets you get whatever you want, and like I think there's going to be a lot of just Braden gets into the lane 8 seconds in the possession and kicks to a shooter and wide open shot. It'll be kind of a game to make sure that Purdue can make those shots and kind of put this game away. They will have to do some stuff like that, but realistically, this defense theoretically poses little to no resistance, even amongst some of the worst offenses in power conference basketball.
Yeah, then switching over to the Maryland offense, which is somehow metrically worse than the Maryland defense. I mean, this Maryland offense really doesn't do anything. They are, again, sub 300 in effective field goal percentage on offense. They don't make shots.
It's a bad
They
combo.
bad combo. They don't make shots and they let other teams make a lot of them. It's a recipe to lose games. They're a decent offensive rebounding team. I'll give them that. It's very Buzz Williams, style, which we'll get into Buzz here in a minute. Um, they turn the ball over a decent amount, though Purdue is not a super pressure defense, so we'll see how much that comes into play. They don't make shots from three. They are one of the worst teams in the country at making shots from two, which is good news for a Purdue team that allows a lot from two. They're a pretty average free throw shooting team for whatever that's worth. Uh, they get blocked a lot, which is a really funny stat to see on the stat sheet here. They are one of the worst teams at getting blocked. They just have no size. And that shows up on both ends of the court where teams are able to swat shots against them, and they're not really able to do the same on the other end. And they're pretty average at taking care of the ball. Running down the team sheet here, again, like I said at the top here, there's just not a lot this Maryland team does well.
Yeah, they do. I would say nothing well at the high major level. I guess the one thing on their team sheet they do well at the high major level would be force non-steal turnovers, so force dead ball turnovers. Give them credit for that, I guess. Um, but yeah, like they don't share the ball at all. You mentioned they're not a very good 3-point shooting team, yet they have a pretty high 3-point rate. Like they attempt 45 or 46% of their shots from three. Think that's going to kind of be this scheme that Purdue's defense leans into is forcing a lot of guys to shoot the basketball, especially guys not named Diggy Coit and Elijah Saunders.
Yeah, so let's talk about this Maryland personnel a little bit. Um, Buzz Williams, first year head coach at Maryland, was at Texas A&M before this, and Virginia Tech before that. I believe he originated at Marquette, though I could be wrong. He was great at Virginia Tech. Led a pretty below average ACC program to one of the best teams in the conference for a few years back when the ACC was still winning national titles in the mid to late 2010s. Nearly knocked off that Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett Duke team in the Sweet 16 that year. And he's been at Texas A&M for a while, where he again engineered a turnaround with that program. A&M was, I believe, a 2 seed last year. Has been near the top of the SEC for a while. And that's kind of what Buzz Williams does. He comes into programs that have been wallowing a little bit, and he raises their floor considerably through talent acquisition and a style of play. Now, he came to Maryland late in the coaching cycle this time and kind of had an uphill battle to build a competitive team, as you can see through his results. And it hasn't helped that easily his best player, Pharrell Payne, has been out for half the season and will not play against Purdue. Purdue fans, I'm sure, are familiar with Payne. He was at Minnesota 2 years ago and had a great game in Mackey Arena and a game that was surprisingly close against Zach Edey, and then was arguably the best player on last year's Texas A&M team, a team that beat Purdue in Indianapolis. So, yeah, I mean, this outside of Pharrell Payne, who does Maryland really have that's going to be going up against Purdue?
Yeah, I mean it familiar face Miles Rice. Shout out the Indiana product. I guess you can call him.
Washington State. Throw some respect on the Cougars.
He has slowly gone from Pac-12 Freshman of the Year at Washington State to withering away on Buzz Williams' sub 100 KenPom Maryland team's bench as a junior. So quite the career arc for Miles Rice. But this team has really like 2 to 3 guys I think that really do much. Uh, Coates the one who does anything at all in a ceiling raising level, I think. He's the one guard this team has that can really get going offensively or has at least shown that ability this year. He's averaging 15 a game. He's kind of taken a bigger role with Payne out, and now he's got to be that go-to guy. And then Elijah Saunders, who plays the 5 most of the time for them, he's shooting 42% from 3. He's more of a 4 than a 5. Playing the 5 because Pharrell Payne's not available. He's just a guy that I think could present some unique matchup issues for Purdue with his he's a little bit smaller, a little bit quicker, can step out and shoot. But him being 6'9" and more of a 4 than a 5 really gives Purdue a huge advantage inside, I think.
Yeah, so you mentioned Coit and Saunders as kind of the two guys to watch. I'll also shout out Darius Adams, Alman Washington. We're kind of the other usage guys for Maryland. Uh, Coit and Adams are the only two averaging double figures with Payne out of the lineup. I mean, those guys handle the bulk of the scoring load for Maryland, with Washington and Saunders kind of picking their spots and taking good looks when they get them. In terms of the lineups are going to look like, Solomon Washington comes off the bench, but he plays a ton of minutes. I'm sure against Purdue's size in the front court, they're going to want try and match with more size of their own. He's been in foul trouble in some games recently, but short of that, he's going to play 30 plus minutes. Miles Rice is largely out of the rotation at this point, short of garbage time minutes, which if this game gets ugly, I'm sure he'll get some run. But it's going to be a lot of Coit, Adams, Saunders, and Washington, with one of, like Isaiah Watts or Colin Metcalf, Andre Mills kind of filling in some of the minutes around them. So not a ton of names to know on this Maryland team, kind of reinforcing what we've been saying throughout the preview about how they don't have a ton to offer Purdue that can challenge them. Schematically, though, I think this is another game. We talked about this in the Indiana preview about how they only have a couple of guys to take most of their shots, and that kind of plays into what the Purdue defense wants to do. Same thing is going to be true against Maryland. I assume CJ Cox is probably going to be on Diggy Coit most of the game as sort of their primary ball handler. They'll probably stick Braden on Adams. And the only guys you really need to pay attention to as shooters are Coit and Saunders. Both are good shooters, quite at 38%, Saunders at 42. I expect Purdue will probably employ the favorite method of coaches, players, and fans alike of letting other guys take shots from three if they're open. And most of them are sub 30%.
Yeah, I mean, there's only two guys that play really meaningful minutes at all for this team that are shooting better than 30%. I guess better than 34%. Miles Rice is there at 34% on just 11 makes on the year. But outside of Coet and Saunders, like you said, like there's really nobody you got to worry about. Adams is for the scoring that he's shown is shooting 24% on the year. Mills is shooting 29% on the year. Solomon Washington is 24% on the year. Like these guys are pretty much non-shooters essentially, and so this feels like a game that it wouldn't shock me to see. Like you look up and Darius Adams has made 4 of 6 on just 6 wide open attempts, but even guys like Washington who have made 5 all year, like that's non-shooter territory just off of volume. And so I think that this matchup kind of plays into Purdue's hands, I think, a little bit because it's going to allow the bigs to stay underneath the basket a little bit and battle with guys like Saunders and Washington for rebounds. And I think if Clough and TKR are in position underneath the rim this entire game defensively, they should theoretically win quite a few rebounding battles, even if the rebounding's taken a little bit of a drop recently.
The one schematic wrinkle that Maryland can throw at this Purdue defense that could lead to some positive numbers for them is a little bit like what Indiana did with Tucker DeVries and just play through Elijah Saunders a lot. He's going to be playing the 5. He's going to force at least one of the Purdue bigs to guard him on the perimeter, and he's their best shooter at volume, shooting 42%. If you let this guy get going, he can beat you, and he only averages 9 points a game, so doesn't take a ton of shots. But Purdue's been vulnerable in ball screen coverage. They've been vulnerable to pick and pop 5s. They've really been vulnerable to any big who's going to force Trekoff and Wren, Oscar Clough, and Daniel Jacobson to guard on the perimeter. Like, if Maryland wants an advantage in this game, it's basically what Indiana did. I think Indiana just gave them a pretty solid blueprint for how, Maryland can try to attack this game to maybe keep it close and pull out a win late. And that's play through your stars, force Purdue into a lot of ball screen coverage that they're miscommunicating on and leaving open shooters, and play a lot of Elijah Saunders and have him shoot, force Oscar Clough or Coffin Wren to to guard him on the perimeter, and hopefully that opens up some backdoor cuts, some more driving lanes for other guards. I mean, we saw Indiana role players who rarely make an impact have career days against Purdue because the defense was out of sorts, forced to guard Tucker DeVries and Lamar Wilkerson and others on the wing.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a perfect opportunity in this game to get some lineup changes. I think the lineup that we saw at the end of the Indiana game with TKR at the 5 and Benter at the 4 is something you could get away with playing quite a bit of in this game, and it wouldn't shock me to see that either. I think even if you were to switch up the starting lineup, I think this is the game to do it, just because I think this is the best matchup for it. This is the team that won't be able to take advantage of you playing Trey Kaufman at the 5 because they essentially play their own version of Trey Kaufman right at the 5 already. So I think it opens up quite a bit of possibilities for this Purdue team to kind of play with some lineups and maybe go small a little bit.
I agree, though. I also think the coaches are going to view this as a big opportunity for Daniel Jacobson. This is a game where they should be able to play in drop coverage with their big, their center, and leave their 4 on Saunders defensively. And with the way Maryland is already shooting around the rim, I mean, Jacobson can stumble into 5 blocks in this game in 15 minutes. So, we'll see what the coaches decide to do there. If they decide to let's play small, let's get a little more shooting and speed on the floor and play a little bit more aggressively defensively, or do we want to overwhelm them with size and always keep a foot around the court and really punish inside on the offensive end? I think there's multiple avenues for Purdue to attack offensively, and I think you're right. There's some opportunities defensively as well to experiment, tinker with some lineups. I'd be shocked if they change the starting lineup, but we might see Benter come in for Clough at the under 16 instead of Jacobson, something like that to get some different looks out there and get them serious running competitive minutes.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue into predictions. Ken Palm has this game as a 13-point win for Purdue, projecting an 81-68 win. Lower possession game, only projecting 65 possessions, but 81 points for Purdue on those 65 possessions. I think the analytics back up the thought process. This Maryland defense should have pretty much absolutely nothing for this Purdue offense. How do you see this game going? Do you think Purdue covers a 13? This is a big spot for Purdue. How do you think they respond?
13 sounds about right. I think if this were in Mackey, the spread would be wider, of course, but it is on the road. It's a road conference game, which no matter how bad Maryland is, those are never easy. Both of these teams play pretty slow, so I don't expect it to be a super high scoring, fast paced environment. Give me Purdue 82-63. I'll say they cover the 13. They win by close to 20. This is a big moment for the Purdue team, though. Like, Purdue needs to come out and play with their hair on fire. They need to show some passion. This is a Maryland team they should beat by 30 if they want to. Do they want to? Do they come out and play the way they need to? Do they beat up on a lesser team? Do they exert themselves a little bit? I don't really see a world where Purdue loses this game, and if they do, then the conversation very quickly turns from getting right to much darker conversations about this Purdue team and personnel. So I don't really see that happening, though. I think they win. The question is just by how much. Is this a game where they actually come out of it feeling like they got their mojo back, or is it, all right, we got the win, but it was more of the same on both ends of the court? I said this in the Indiana recap. I think Purdue could play exactly as poorly as they did against Indiana and still win this game. The question is if they're going to or not. I think they figured out. Give me 82-63 Purdue.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards where you're at. I think this game is going to be super low possession. I think Purdue looks at this matchup and says there's not a chance that Maryland can execute with us in a short, long, grinded out game. And nothing easy for this Maryland team, I think, in transition means not very much easy at all night offensively for them. And defensively, I don't think this Maryland team can stop Purdue. I don't think this is the game that the Purdue offense kind of finds its form again and gets clicking on all cylinders. I do think this is a big spot for the defense. I think this is a great chance for the defense to get right against a Maryland offense that theoretically has nothing for this Purdue defense, really. Like, they don't really do much of anything, I think, at a high level, and that should lead to a good Purdue defensive performance. I think I'm going to take Purdue something like 83-64, another big win, like a 19-point win for Purdue. Um, but yeah, I think this game says more about the defense to me, I think, than the offense. And I look to that next spot against Oregon for a spot for the offense to really get going at home. This game's on the road, um, at Maryland at the Xfinity Center. So I think the defense gets going on the road, and the offense takes a second to recalibrate after the kind of skid that we've seen.
Yeah, so with that, that'll wrap up our preview here. We'll be back, of course, to recap after the game. Purdue gets a little bit of a break. They don't have a midweek game next week, so the next game after this will be Oregon the following weekend. But of course, as we've been all season, we'll be here to preview and recap every game along the way. So stay tuned.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. Be sure to look out for the recap. That'll be coming out likely on Monday.